If this is your first time playing the official Formula 1 game, or you're simply looking to get more out of it, stick around, because we are about to run you through an extensive list of the most useful tips and tricks. We aim to cover every corner of the game, but if you have any more suggestions of your own, be sure to let us know in the comment section below. First things first, for PC players, make sure you run a benchmark test from the graphics settings menu. F1 cars are easier and more enjoyable to race when your game is running at a consistent 60 frames per second, and I'd recommend sacrificing detail in order to achieve this. If using a steering wheel and pedals, head to your wheel software outside of the game, and set the rotation, sometimes known as sensitivity, to either automatic or 400 degrees. This will ensure that your wheel's rotation matches up perfectly with the default setting for the wheel in the game. If this makes the car feel a bit too pointy, however, the advice from Ross is to set your rotation in your profiler to 540 degrees and the rotation in-game to 450. This should make things a little more gradual. For a more detailed look at some of our force feedback recommendations, do check out Ross's article on the Traxion website. At the end of the day, it all comes down to personal preference. As for your calibration settings, assuming everything's okay with your wheel and pedals, make sure you leave your steering rate on 100% and your dead zone and saturation settings on 0. The best way to check if you do have an issue is by using the test buttons feature. Just make sure your inputs are giving you a clean 0% when nothing's being pressed and 100% when your pedals are pushed to the floor and the steering wheel is fully turned. Linearity settings are basically just down to feel, but I wouldn't worry about them too much at this early stage if you're using a wheel. These settings are, however, a bit more important when using a controller, as precise inputs are trickier on a trigger than a pedal, so linearity might help you drive more smoothly. As for other controller settings, you can make your car a bit more reactive and agile by increasing the steering rate above 100%, alongside lowering your maximum wheel rotation. You can then add a little bit of steering linearity to make those minor inputs less sensitive. The overall increase in responsiveness can make things trickier to control, so it's not for everyone, and it may be better to stick to the slightly less sensitive default settings at first, until you get to grips with things. A higher overall vibration setting is also worth a shot, as it'll help you feel what the car's doing underneath you. It's worth spending the time on button mapping as well, as certain actions such as changing ERS modes will be required regularly during the races, and you'll want this adjustment to be a one-click process. Let's move on to game modes. Starting from the game's main menu, the modes on offer are Career, F1 World, Local Multiplayer and League Racing. We'll cover Career and F1 World in a bit more depth later, but it's worth noting now that your regular Grand Prix and Time Trial modes can be found within the F1 World menus, as well as Ranked Multiplayer, just in case you couldn't find it. Local Multiplayer allows you to race within a local network environment, and League Racing allows you to race within a league, and records your results throughout a season. If you want to just jump in a car and drive though, we'd recommend either the Series or Grand Prix modes. Now when it comes to driving, this year's game is certainly more forgiving than its predecessors, but we've outlined a few helpful tips to help you get up to speed. Although it's not particularly useful to try and match the world's fastest time straight away, F1 24's Time Trial mode allows players to gradually increase their pace. By setting a lap time, players are presented with the ghost of the player just ahead of them on the leaderboard, offering extra motivation to get faster and improve their lines. And if you want to turn that racing line off that isn't the regular dynamic racing line found within the assists menu, head to the Time Trial settings menu instead and turn off Personal Best Telemetry mode. You're welcome. You can also download setups used by competitors, which may help you find even more lap time. Simply click on the name of one of the pros on the Time Trial leaderboard for any given circuit and click Load Setup. Just make sure you save this for future use as well. Note that tyre temperature is switched off in Time Trial mode. Whilst on the subject of setups, it's worth reiterating their importance if you want to find extra lap time. Sure, if you're brand new to things, then there are more important elements to worry about, but if you're up to a decent speed and looking for those extra few seconds of pace, the setups will go a long way in helping you achieve this. For those on PC, you can also download these using the Steam Workshop feature, where you can search for a specific setup on a specific circuit, subscribe to it, and save it straight into your game. Just remember that if you do end up using a time trial setup for a regular Grand Prix, your tyre wear may be suboptimal, as it may have been created primarily for hot lapping. If you're just starting out, don't shy away from using assists like traction control, ERS or DRS assists, automatic gears, and ABS. Beginning your F1 24 driving career with assists turned on is perfectly acceptable, and once you feel more confident, you can turn them off one by one. When using a controller, ABS, which is anti-lock braking system, is especially important given how difficult it is to modulate braking power on a pad versus using pedals. If you're struggling to accelerate out of slow corners, try shifting gears early to eliminate wheel spin. As much as short shifts can help you, however, the key is to be patient and gradual on the accelerator. When exiting slow corners, it's always better to ease your way back onto the power, whether that's the throttle pedal or a trigger. Less wheel spin, less risk, better tyre wear, faster lap times. It's a win-win. Formula cars use their superior aerodynamic grip to achieve seemingly impossible cornering speeds, creating a lot of drag as a result. You can use this to your advantage by lifting off the gas pedal early into fast corners instead of braking. You may find that this is enough to keep your corner speed up and help gain even more lap time. A good example is Pouon at Spa-Francorchamps, where lifting off the throttle slightly allows you to take the corner comfortably in 6th or 7th gear. The same principle applies when trying to save fuel, as lifting at high speed before braking for a corner will also use much less fuel than if you approached at full throttle before braking, and the time loss is negligible. In F124, kerbs can be used heavily, so use as much of them as you're legally allowed to. This theoretically increases the track's width, allowing you to carry more speed through the turns. There is more to an F1 race, however, than simply driving quickly. At the bottom right of your screen, you can find two icons, one containing a headset and the other a bunch of bars. Pressing the highlighted button for either icon brings up its contents. Starting with the bars, this contains information about the car and is different depending on what type of session you're in. For a standard race, the first menu features the current fuel mix, front brake bias, differential status, and the ERS deployment mode. If you have the ERS assist turned on, this will be set to auto, but turning it off allows you to change between the different ERS modes during a session. The next menu contains information about pit stops and what the team might do to your car during the next one. You can change the front wing angle to improve downforce, for example, or change the entire wing if it's damaged, as well as setting the required tyre compound for your next stop. The next page contains 4 circles indicating the amount of wear each tyre has. If it's orange or red, you will experience a loss of grip and you should consider pitting very soon. On the next screen, you can check how much heat is going through your tyres, with the top icon representing the core of the tyre and the middle icon representing the outer layer, alongside the brakes and engine temperature. These are colour-coded as you'd expect, so if a component is red, you may need to drive cautiously to bring the temperature down. The final menu is all about engine wear. This is predominantly used within the career modes, where it shows the amounts of wear on each part of the internals, and again is represented in colour. If it's red on this occasion, you may face some sort of car failure, and an early retirement is possible. Moving on to the headset icon, pressing the related button shows a list of lines that you can ask your race engineer. Select one of these options and your race engineer will reply accordingly, but you don't have to rely on scrolling through the menu to choose a preset option. Thankfully, the game has featured voice recognition for a long time, allowing you to actually speak into the microphone about information you would like to hear, or simply tell the engineer to shut up.
Shut up, Jeff.
Copy that.
A quick word on HUD Customization too, as you can adjust it to suit your needs. From the pause menu, head for on-screen display settings. Each individual element can be selected and moved around to fit your style, but we'd especially recommend turning on the virtual rear view mirror, which for some reason is turned off by default. Play around with it and see what works for you, but one thing we would highly recommend for those using cockpit view is to turn off the halo column. Yes, the halo is immersive, but it's not exactly helpful. This can be done by selecting camera customization within the settings and turning halo column off. So, you can drive and you understand your HUD, but winning a Grand Prix is about even more than that. It's about making the right calls on strategy too. This can be fuel numbers, selecting the right tyre compound, pit stop strategy, or knowing the perfect moment to switch to intermediates or even wet tyres. The 3 different dry compounds are distinguishable thanks to their associated colour. Soft tyres are red, provide the highest level of grip over 1 lap and will wear the fastest, ideal for qualifying laps or a short race stint. Medium tyres have a yellow ring, providing less grip but also lasting longer, and hard tyres are white. They give you the least amount of grip, but this should last for a long time, being an ideal choice for a long stint of a one-stop strategy race. In dry races, you must use at least 2 different dry weather compounds of tyre, but every race will require a different plan to a certain extent. A short pit lane, for example, might encourage a more aggressive strategy with softer tyres and more stops. A long, slow pit lane or a track where you can't overtake, like Monaco, may be better suited to less pit stops. If you do need to do longer stints, tyre life is crucial, so apply some of those tips I mentioned earlier to minimise your wheel spin. Be gentle on the throttle, brake pedal and steering wheel to avoid overworking and locking up the tyres, because doing so will increase your tyre wear dramatically in F124. Rain is another variable that you'll come across when playing this game, and it can be a difficult decision to decide when to come in and pit for intermediate or wet tyres. Now, your engineer will be able to assist you during the race, telling you when it's worth switching, so make sure you pay attention to this. I found that the change between dry and intermediate tyres normally coincides with the DRS being enabled or disabled. Once the track is wet enough for DRS to be disabled, it's probably time for inters. When the track is moderately wet, which is the second highest setting labelled wet, the intermediate tyres will be about 2 to 3 seconds a lap faster than a full wet tyre. When the track is very wet, it's the exact opposite. So with that in mind, it's only worth changing to a fully wet compound if you know the track will be very wet for a long time. The intermediate will be the better tyre on many occasions, so if you're unsure, consider what the forecast is saying about upcoming weather, and only go with full wets if the track is soaked and the sun is absolutely nowhere to be seen. As the track dries, the racing line will become darker, signalling where you'll find the most grip. It's worth sticking to this line in the corners for optimal speed, but avoid this line on the straights if you can to help cool down your wearing intermediate tyres and extend their lifespan. F124 has Energy Recovery System or ERS deploy modes for players to tinker with whilst driving. The 4 modes are None, Medium, Hot Lap and Overtake, and they can be changed on the fly. This relates to how much battery assistance is used by your car's powertrain, boosting speed and affecting the rate of battery charging. ERS management seems to be crucial to lap time in F124, so if you use a gamepad, try to map ERS controls to your right analog stick, as adjusting this via the MFD can take up vital tenths of a second. F1 cars are limited on the energy they can recharge during the lap from braking, denoted by the red bar at the bottom left of the screen, and on the amount of battery that can be deployed on a lap, the green bar on the bottom right of the screen. The battery level is represented by a yellow bar, and this can be topped up during a lap, depending on the selected ERS mode. The key is to balance this to ensure you use the maximum allowed energy on every lap. It's also possible to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the system by developing them further in the game's career mode. A new setup feature for F124 is engine braking. Increasing this value in the car setup screen allows more battery charging at the expense of increased oversteer on corner entry. Lower values provide a safer driving feeling, but the battery will recharge less under braking. I said earlier we'd come back to career mode. Now it's worth noting that there are 4 different forms of career mode this time around. The traditional single-player driver career returns, albeit with significant changes, allowing you to race as yourself, or an existing driver, and increase driver ratings. Then there is My Team, where you race for and manage a brand new 11th team on the grid. Cooperative 2-player career mode also returns, and then we have a shiny new 4th option, the Challenge career. This works very much like the regular driving career mode. You take part in Grand Prix weekends against the AI that form a championship, while simultaneously helping your team develop their car through R&D and specialist perks. The difference here though is that you're actually competing against other players around the world of a similar skill level. Everyone's playing as the same driver for the same team, competing in the same races with the same settings locked in. There will be an article on the TraxionGG website explaining a bit more about what the challenge career actually entails, but the main thing to know is that races are split up by episodes across a 4-week season. Now the best advice I can offer you here to maximise your result is to attempt each episode early in the week. For a limited time, you have unlimited retries, meaning a bad result can quickly turn into a good one, so take advantage of this. Now I mentioned specialist perks a minute ago. This is one new facet of F124's driver and challenge career modes, and these expert team members, the specialists, have certain skills and offer players goals to hit in exchange for various bonuses. These goals are all fairly straightforward, and doing as many as possible is a great way to help develop your car faster and more efficiently through R&D. It's not always obvious when a specialist becomes available though, and the goals must be accepted manually, so just make sure you come back and check this menu regularly for any changes. If you get to a race weekend and then realise you've forgotten, don't panic, you can still access the specialist menu via the workstation before your session. And if you forget about your goals whilst out on circuit, simply pause the game, and they'll be there on the right hand side of the screen. This one is an obvious point, but completing the practice program set by your engineer every race weekend will help improve your car in the long run. They will also help you get familiar with the circuit ahead of your qualifying and race attempts. But if you already know the circuit well enough after one run and don't fancy another pair of practice sessions, you can also simulate these practice programs and play a risk versus reward minigame to determine which perks and resource points you will obtain. This is a time-saving tool that becomes very useful down the line, but it's only made available after the first practice session of any new career mode is completed, so bear that in mind. I've mentioned the term R&D many times. This stands for research and development, and you've got to make sure you don't let all of those successful practice programs and perks go to waste. R&D is a time-sensitive development race that you can win, so long as you pay attention to progression outside of the races. As soon as you've finished a race weekend, check your resource points and head straight for the R&D menu. The sooner you start working on development for a part, the sooner you will receive the upgrade or perk, so it's always good to stay on top of these upgrades every time one becomes possible to execute. Don't forget to take advantage of those discounts either. Sometimes you can develop a part for less than 250 resource points. There's also a benefit to being the lead driver within a team, as you'll be allocated marginally more resource points per week, as well as some preferential treatment in the form of secret R&D upgrades that your teammate isn't privy to. Sneaky. Now, I said I would return to F1 World, but here's the thing, it is a beast of a game mode. It pretty much deserves its own full video. In fact, it has its own full video, at least for last year's game. The truth is, it hasn't changed all that much since then, so if you want to find out more about the world of F1 World, just watch that previous video. Also bear in mind that your progress will not carry over to the new game if you did play this mode in F1 23. One thing that is new for this year is the Fanzone area, unlocked by completing the introductory Welcome to F1 World series of events. If you're aiming to progress in F1 World, then we recommend you assign a driver and a team. As this is an asynchronous collaborative section, you will receive F1 World rewards in your inbox as other players around the world complete goals. You can also earn fan points by completing objectives set by the new Fan Liaison vendor goals. A couple more tips that do carry over from the previous game. First of all, ignore most of the constant stream of rewards and focus on earning critical insight points or fan tokens, as these can be used to craft legendary or unique items, which have a big performance boost. The work you put in towards levels that pay out critical insight rewards in Podium Pass can be key. You earn XP from any game mode, but prize collection is manual, so don't forget about it. You can also view the goals section and spot any specific ones that pay out critical insight. Now, we've only skimmed the surface there, but if you want more information, once again, just check out last year's full F1 World Guide. If you're looking for competitive online racing without joining a league, then ranked multiplayer within the F1 World area is going to be the mode for you. Here, you compete against similarly skilled racers and grind out results to earn higher rankings. The mode is tied to a license level, however. There are 4 in total based upon how clean you drive, not just in multiplayer, but also in the F1 World single-player races. If your license level is C or D, you'll not be able to enter proper ranked multiplayer races that allow for contact and therefore overtaking and defending. It's basically just a hot lap ghost competition. Our tip is to not get caught up straight away in the competitive races. Visit the relatively straightforward F1 World events against the AI, drive as cleanly as you can, and increase your license level to level B. During races, you will get a warning if you make contact or exceed track limits, so avoid this at all costs. One final point on this, you can set up a custom Grand Prix. Visit the Rules and Flags menu pre-race and toggle on Affects License Level if you'd like to try and reach B and A bit quicker. Don't forget to turn that off though before purposely trying to cause red flags for a YouTube video. So we've just about reached the end of this extensive tips and tricks video, but a couple more key things that will help you get the most out of your experience. To enjoy a fully immersive career mode with all of the driver transfers, pecking order changes, and legacy building, the key is to keep meaningful progression achievable. Don't burn yourself out by going too hard too soon, spending hours on 3 practice sessions and maybe a qualifying effort, then a full-length race. It's amazing and immersive, but generally unsustainable. We highly recommend starting with short or very short races, 25% distance or 5 laps respectively, and one-shot qualifying as well. As tyre wear is scaled, a 25% race still allows for strategy and pit stops, but also allows you to make tangible overall progress. Your second and third seasons will see exciting twists to the status quo that needs to be experienced. If you want to keep the season calendars themselves a little bit shorter, either 16 or even 10 races rather than the full 24, it's possible to select custom season rather than full season during the career setup process. You can even pick which races make the cut and which don't, although you can't change the order of these. The sprint race format is worth trying too. Adding an extra qualifying and race session in place of the second and third practice sessions keeps things fresh every now and then. I'd also recommend spending the time finding your ideal difficulty level. Winning races should be challenging, but doable in a top 8 car. Scoring points should feel rewarding in a Kick Sauber. Winning every race at a canter will soon become boring. So are there any other tips or guides that you'd like to see us cover in depth? Drop all of your F124 chatter in our Discord server or in the comments below. And remember to subscribe to this TraxionGG YouTube channel and visit our website TraxionGG for the latest F124 news and reviews. Leave us a like if you found this video useful, and until next time, thank you so much for watching and have a great day.